The dying star cast its amber light across the bridge of the Serenity, painting Captain Elena Vasquez's weathered face in shades of burnished gold. She stood before the massive viewport, watching the star's final dance, a cosmic ballet of nuclear fire that would soon collapse into a white dwarf, taking with it any hope of rescue. "Captain," came the voice of her communications officer, Lieutenant Chen. "The distress beacon is still transmitting on all frequencies. No response from the Colonial Authority, the Trade Federation, or any of the independent sectors." Elena closed her eyes. 3 weeks since the cascade failure that had crippled their FTL drive. 3 weeks of drifting through the outer rim, watching their supplies dwindle and their hope fade like the dying star before them. The Serenity carried 847 souls, colonists bound for New Eden, crew members with families waiting at home, children who would never see their 8th birthday if help didn't come soon. "Have we tried the restricted frequencies?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "Ma'am, those channels are classified for good reason. The Deathworlders zones are." "I know what they are, Lieutenant." Elena's voice carried the weight of command and desperation in equal measure. "But we're 3 days from life support failure. Prep the emergency transmitter." Lieutenant Chen's face paled. "Captain, the Deathworlder treaties specifically prohibit." "The treaties were written by people who had the luxury of options," Elena snapped. "We don't." "Send the signal." The Deathworlder zones. Even the name sent shivers through civilized space. 12 sectors of the galaxy marked as absolute no-go areas, home to species that had evolved not on garden worlds like Earth or the peaceful farming colonies, but on planets that killed everything soft, everything weak, everything unprepared for constant, merciless warfare with nature itself. The stories filtered back occasionally, tales of beings that could survive in vacuum, creatures that fed on radiation, entities that viewed the complete extinction of their enemies as merely the opening move in a larger game. The Galactic Council had negotiated the Deathworlder Accords 40 years ago, establishing strict boundaries. They would remain in their zones, and civilized space would leave them alone. "Signal prepared, Captain," Chen reported, his fingers trembling over the controls. "Send it." The transmission burst outward at faster-than-light speeds, carrying with it their coordinates, their desperate situation, and their plea for aid. Elena watched the dying star and wondered if she had just doomed them all to something worse than slow death in the void. They received their answer 18 hours later. The ship that dropped out of hyperspace near the Serenity defied every principle of aesthetic engineering that had guided starship design for the past 3 centuries. Where human vessels curved gracefully through space, this thing jutted and spiked like a weapon forged by a fever dream. Its hull was the color of dried blood, scarred with what looked like impact craters but moved too deliberately to be damaged. "Sweet Mother of Terra," whispered Chen. "What is that thing?" Elena stared at the readings flooding their sensors. The ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of their colony transport, but it moved with the deadly grace of a predator. More disturbing were the energy signatures, power readings that fluctuated in patterns their computers couldn't parse, emanating heat that should have melted the ship's hull, and something else, something their instruments labeled simply as unknown biological signatures. "Captain," called Dr. Sarah Mitchell from the science station. "I'm reading massive life signs aboard that vessel. But the patterns, they're unlike anything in our xenobiology databases." Before Elena could respond, their communications array crackled to life. The voice that emerged was like gravel grinding against bone, speaking in perfect standard English but with an accent that seemed to come from the depths of some primordial cave. "Human vessel Serenity. We received your distress call. I am War Chief Crothan of the Bloodship Devourer's Edge. You requested aid." Elena stepped forward, her command training warring with every instinct that screamed at her to run. "War Chief Crothan, this is Captain Elena Vasquez. We're experiencing critical systems failure and are in need of immediate assistance. Our life support will fail within 72 hours. A sound emerged from the communication system that might have been laughter if laughter could be weaponized. "Captain Vasquez, we have analyzed your vessel and your situation. Your ship is dying. Your people are weak. By the standards of civilized space, you are already dead. Elena's blood chilled. War Chief, we have children aboard. Innocent civilians who... Innocent. The word dripped with something that might have been amusement or contempt. An interesting concept. Very well, Captain Vasquez. We will provide aid, as requested. Thank you. Elena breathed, relief flooding through her. Do not thank us yet, human. We do not offer charity. We offer opportunity. Your people will survive, but survival among the Kethvar comes with a price. We are transmitting docking coordinates. You will board our vessel. All of you. Elena felt the first tendrils of real fear. War Chief, perhaps we could discuss alternative arrangements. You sent the signal, Captain. You requested aid from Deathworlders. This is what aid looks like when it comes from those who call the dark between stars home. Dock in 30 of your minutes, or we will leave you to die with your precious innocence intact. The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in silence broken only by the steady beep of the life support warnings. The docking bay of the Devourer's Edge was a cathedral of living metal and bioluminescent veins. As Elena led the first group of colonists through the airlock, she felt the floor pulse beneath her feet with what could only be a heartbeat. The air was thick with humidity and carried scents of ozone, copper, and something organic that her brain couldn't quite categorize. Stay close, she whispered to the group behind her, 20 adults and 5 children, the first of many groups that would have to make this journey. Remember, these beings saved our lives. The first Kethvar she saw nearly made her lose what little remained of her composure. It stood 3 meters tall, its body a fusion of muscle, carapace, and what looked like organic machinery. 6 arms ended in hands that could be delicate manipulators or devastating weapons, depending on need. Its head was elongated, crowned with sensory spines that tracked movement throughout the bay, and its eyes, God help her, its eyes burned with an intelligence that was utterly alien yet terrifyingly familiar. War Chief Crothan approached them with movements that were both fluid and predatory. When he spoke, Elena could see that his mouth contained multiple rows of teeth designed for tearing apart things much harder than flesh. Captain Vasquez, your people are smaller than expected. Elena forced herself to meet his gaze. We appreciate your assistance, War Chief. What are your terms? Crothan's head tilted in what might have been amusement. Direct. Good. Your species may yet prove interesting. The terms are simple. Your people will live aboard our ship. You will learn our ways. Those who adapt will earn their place among us. Those who do not. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. And what exactly does learning your ways entail? Elena asked. Strength, Captain. Your people are weak because your worlds are weak. You have never faced true adversity, never been forced to evolve beyond your limitations. We will correct this deficiency. A child began crying, little Sarah Chin, only 6 years old and terrified by the alien environment. Crothan's attention fixed on her immediately, and Elena stepped protectively between them. She's just a child, Elena said. She's frightened. Crothan studied the crying girl with those burning eyes. Fear is the first lesson. It teaches us what we must overcome. The child learns quickly, or she does not learn at all. Elena felt her hands clench into fists. What are you saying? I am saying, Captain, that your species has a choice. Evolve or perish. We will provide the pressure necessary for evolution. He gestured to other Kethvar in the bay, beings that moved with deadly grace, their bodies scarred by countless battles. Every one of my crew has faced the trial of adaptation. They are stronger for it. What's the trial of adaptation? Dr. Mitchell asked, and Elena wished she hadn't. Crothan's smile revealed far too many teeth. You will discover this soon enough, Dr. Mitchell. But first, you must understand where you are. This is not a rescue ship. This is a warship of the Kethvar Empire, and you are now crew. As crew, you will learn to survive in conditions that would kill ordinary beings. You will be tested. You will be pushed beyond your limits. And if you are found worthy, you will emerge as something greater than human. Elena looked around the bay at her people, colonists who had never imagined anything more dangerous than crop failure, crew members trained for peaceful exploration, children who should have been playing in meadows on New Eden. They were lambs in a den of wolves, and she had led them here. War Chief, she began, but Crothan raised a hand. The decision has been made, Captain. Your distress call has been answered. Welcome to the Devourer's Edge. Your real lives begin now. The quarters assigned to the humans were spacious by their standards, but clearly designed for beings accustomed to hardship. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins, the temperature fluctuated unpredictably, and the gravity shifted in subtle ways that kept everyone slightly off balance. Elena gathered her senior staff in what had once been a conference room aboard the Serenity, and was now just another compartment in their new reality. Report, she said simply. Chief Engineer Marcus Webb looked haggard. The Kethvar have integrated our people throughout their ship, but they've separated families. The children are in what they call adaptation chambers with Kethvar instructors. Elena's stomach dropped. Define instructors. From what I can tell, they're juvenile Kethvar. Younger, but still twice the size of our adults, and apparently tasked with toughening up our kids. Dr. Mitchell leaned forward. Captain, I've been studying the Kethvar biology from what I can observe. Their cellular structure is unlike anything in our databases. They can survive in environments that would kill us in seconds. Their bones are metallic composites, their muscles are reinforced with some kind of organic fiber, and their nervous systems process pain differently than ours. How differently? They appear to experience pain as information rather than suffering. It tells them about damage and threats, but it doesn't incapacitate them the way it would us. In fact, based on their behavior patterns, I think they actually find it stimulating. Lieutenant Chen spoke up. Captain, they've assigned me to what they call tactical training. Tomorrow, I'm supposed to participate in something called a combat meditation. The Kethvar instructor told me I'd either learn to fight properly or learn why fighting improperly is fatal. Elena rubbed her temples. 3 days aboard the Devourer's Edge, and already her people were being pushed into situations that violated every safety protocol in the book. But what choice did they have? The Serenity was now nothing more than raw materials, broken down and integrated into the Kethvar ship's hull. Ma'am, said Dr. Mitchell quietly, there's something else. I've been monitoring the children. Sarah Chen, the little girl who was crying? She's changing. What do you mean, changing? Physically. Her muscle density has increased by 12%. Her reflexes have improved dramatically. And her psychological profile. Mitchell paused. She's not afraid anymore. Of anything. Elena stared at her chief medical officer. That's impossible. Human physiology doesn't work that way. Human physiology doesn't, no. But the Kethvar have been introducing what they call enhancement factors into our food and water. Microscopic organisms that apparently trigger rapid adaptive evolution. The room went silent. Elena felt a cold certainty settling in her chest. They're changing us, she said. Yes, ma'am. The question is, into what? Before anyone could answer, the lights in the room shifted to a deep red, and War Chief Crothan's voice echoed through the ship's organic communication system. All humans to adaptation stations. Trial begins now. The adaptation chamber was a sphere roughly 50 meters in diameter, its walls covered in what looked like neural tissue that pulsed with electrical activity. Elena found herself standing alongside 30 other humans, including Dr. Mitchell and Lieutenant Chen. At the center of the sphere stood a Kethvar she hadn't seen before, smaller than Crothan but with scars that spoke of countless battles. I am Instructor Vextai, the being announced. You are weak. This will be corrected. The trial of pain teaches the first lesson of survival. Suffering is temporary, but strength endures. Elena stepped forward. What exactly does this trial involve? Vextai's attention fixed on her with predatory intensity. You will experience the conditions of our homeworld Kethmiran. Atmospheric pressure will increase. Temperature will fluctuate. Gravity will multiply. You will endure or you will not. And if we don't endure? Then you will learn why the weak do not survive among the Kethvar. The chamber began to change. Elena felt the first increase in atmospheric pressure like a weight settling on her chest. The temperature spiked, then plummeted, then spiked again. Around her, she could hear her people beginning to struggle, gasping for breath as the very air became their enemy. The first lesson, Vextai continued, his voice carrying easily through the transformed atmosphere, is that your body is not your limit. Your mind is your limit. Pain is merely information. Process it. Use it. Overcome it. The gravity increased. Elena felt her knees buckle as she suddenly weighed twice what she had moments before. 3 times. 4 times. Around her, people were collapsing, crying out in agony as their bones compressed under the impossible weight. "Stop this!" she gasped. "You're killing them!" "No, Captain Vasquez. We are teaching them to live. Those who adapt will emerge stronger. Those who cannot." Vextai gestured to a section of the chamber wall where Elena could see the bodies of previous trial participants, not human bodies, but the remains of other species that had failed the Kethvar's tests. Elena watched in horror as Dr. Mitchell collapsed, blood streaming from her nose. Lieutenant Chin was on his hands and knees, struggling just to breathe. A colonist named Peterson had gone completely still. But something was happening to her. The enhancement factors Dr. Mitchell had detected were working, triggered by the extreme conditions. Elena could feel her muscles adapting, her bones strengthening, her nervous system rewiring itself to process the pain as mere data. She was becoming something more than human, something harder. And she hated it. The trial lasted 6 hours. When it ended, 23 of the 30 humans were still conscious. 7 had died. Elena knelt beside Dr. Mitchell, who was breathing but unconscious, her body having undergone changes that made her barely recognizable as the woman who had been her chief medical officer. "Acceptable losses," Vextai announced. "Phase 1 of adaptation is complete. Those who survived will proceed to Phase 2 tomorrow." Elena looked up at the Kethvar instructor. "Phase 2? Combat training. You have learned to endure. Now you will learn to destroy." 3 weeks into their rescue, Elena no longer recognized her people. Lieutenant Chin moved through the ship's corridors with the fluid grace of a born killer, his muscles enhanced by Kethvar biotechnology, his eyes holding a predatory gleam that had never been there before. Dr. Mitchell had survived her transformation but emerged with a clinical detachment that made her former self seem warm by comparison. The children had adapted fastest of all. Little Sarah Chin, now calling herself by the Kethvar name Sci-Fi, could crush steel with her bare hands and had requested to participate in the ship's hunting expeditions. When Elena had tried to stop her, the 6-year-old had looked at her with eyes that held the cold wisdom of a seasoned warrior. "You do not understand, former captain," Sci-Fi had said in a voice that had lost all traces of childhood innocence. "The hunt is necessary. The weak must be culled so the strong may flourish." Elena found herself in War Chief Crothan's private chambers, a space that defied human understanding of interior design. The walls were covered with trophies from 1,000 battles, skulls of beings she couldn't identify, weapons that hummed with barely contained energy, and what looked like the preserved hearts of sentient creatures. "You requested an audience," Crothan said without looking up from the tactical display he was studying. "Speak." "My people," Elena began, then stopped. Were they still her people? The humans you rescued. They're becoming something else. "Yes," Crothan agreed. "They are becoming worthy." "Worthy of what?" Crothan finally turned to face her, and Elena saw something in his expression that chilled her to the bone: approval. "Captain Vasquez, your species sent out a distress call that reached the dark between stars. Do you know what that means?" Elena shook her head. "It means your people are ready for the next stage of evolution. The galaxy is vast and full of threats that your peaceful civilizations cannot even imagine. The devourer swarms that consume entire star systems. The void cultists who seek to unravel reality itself. The machine intelligences that view all organic life as an inefficiency to be corrected. Crothan activated his tactical display, showing Elena a map of the galaxy that looked nothing like the peaceful trade routes and colonial territories she knew. This map showed war zones, areas marked as quarantined, and vast regions labeled simply as extinct. Your people believe they live in a civilized galaxy, Crothan continued. They are children playing in a garden while monsters circle beyond the fence. We are not the monsters, Captain. We are the gardeners who tend the fence. Elena stared at the map. You're saying that everything we know, our entire civilization, exists only because you're protecting it? The Kethvar and the other Deathworlder species, yes. We fight the wars your people cannot survive. We face the threats your people cannot comprehend. And when we recruit new species to our cause, we ensure they are strong enough to stand beside us. By torturing them. By changing them into something they were never meant to be. Crothan's laugh was like the sound of breaking glass. Captain, look at yourself. Truly look. Elena found herself standing before a mirror she hadn't noticed, a surface that reflected not just her image but her essence. What she saw made her stumble backward in shock. Her bones had been reinforced with the same metallic composites she'd observed in Kethvar physiology. Her muscles had been rebuilt with organic fibers that made her stronger than any baseline human had a right to be. Her nervous system had been rewired to process information at superhuman speeds. But more than that, she could see the hunger in her own eyes, the predatory instinct that had been awakened by weeks of Kethvar conditioning. She was no longer entirely human, and the worst part was that she liked what she had become. The transformation is almost complete, Crothan observed. Soon you will be ready for your first real mission. What mission? There is another human colony ship in distress, Captain. The New Horizon. They sent out a distress call 3 days ago. The Colonial Authority has written them off as lost. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. What does that have to do with us? Simple. You and your enhanced crew will respond to their distress call. You will offer them the same choice we offered you, evolve or perish. Those who choose evolution will join our cause. Those who choose to remain weak. Crothan didn't need to finish. Elena could see it all with horrifying clarity. Her former crew, now transformed into something between human and Kethvar, boarding the New Horizon and offering the colonists the same choice she had been given. You're turning us into recruiters, she whispered. We are making you into shepherds, Captain. The galaxy needs warriors, and humanity has proven they can become excellent warriors when properly motivated. Your species will either evolve to face what is coming, or they will be consumed by it. Elena looked at the tactical display again, at the vast regions marked as war zones and extinction events. What's coming? Crothan's expression grew grim. The barriers between dimensions are weakening. Things that should not exist are beginning to slip through. The peaceful galaxy your people know is ending, Captain Vasquez. We are preparing humanity for the war that will determine whether organic life has any future at all. The New Horizon drifted in the void like a dying whale, its lights flickering sporadically as its systems failed one by one. Elena stood on the bridge of the Devourer's edge, watching the human colony's ship through enhanced eyes that could perceive details no baseline human would ever see. She could see the fear radiating from the vessel like heat signatures. She could smell the desperation of 1,200 souls who believed they were about to die alone in the dark. And beneath it all, she could sense the potential, the raw material that could be forged into something magnificent and terrible. Transmission incoming from the New Horizon, announced the Kethvar communications officer. Shall we respond? Elena looked to War Chief Crothan, who nodded almost imperceptibly. This was her test, her first mission as something more than human, something less than Kethvar, something entirely new. Open the channel, she commanded, her voice carrying an authority that would have been impossible for the frightened captain who had first sent out that desperate SOS weeks ago. The face that appeared on the viewscreen was haggard with exhaustion and fear. Captain James Morrison of the New Horizon looked every one of his 60 years, and his eyes held the hollow desperation of a man who had exhausted all options. This is Captain Morrison of the Colonial Transport New Horizon. Our FTL drive has failed, and we're experiencing cascade system failures. We have women and children aboard. Please, if anyone receives this transmission, we need immediate assistance." Elena stepped forward, and she saw Morrison's eyes widen as he took in her transformed appearance. She was still recognizably human, but the enhancements were visible to anyone who looked closely. The too perfect posture, the predatory grace, the eyes that seemed to see everything. "Captain Morrison, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Independent Vessel Devourer's Edge. We received your distress call and are prepared to offer assistance." Relief flooded Morrison's face. "Thank God. Captain Vasquez, we have 1,200 colonists aboard, including 300 children. Our life support will fail within 48 hours. I understand your situation completely, Captain Morrison. In fact, I've been in a very similar position myself, quite recently." Elena's smile was sharp enough to cut. "We can save your people. All of them. But I need you to understand that salvation comes with certain requirements." Morrison's relief began to curdle into suspicion. "What kind of requirements?" "The galaxy is more dangerous than your colonial authority has led you to believe, Captain. The peaceful trade routes and garden worlds you know exist only because there are those willing to stand guard against the darkness. Your people will survive, but they must be willing to become strong enough to stand with us." "I don't understand. Are you with the Colonial Navy? The Trade Federation?" Elena's laugh carried notes of her former self and something far more predatory. "No, Captain Morrison. We are something much more necessary. Prepare your people for transfer. All of them. They will board our vessel, and they will be given the opportunity to become something greater than they are." Morrison's face went pale. "Transfer? Captain, we just need repairs to our drive systems. Perhaps some supplies." "Captain Morrison?" Elena's voice carried a weight of command that made the veteran spacer step back from his own communication console. "Your drive cannot be repaired. Your supplies are exhausted. Your life support will fail. You have exactly one choice: trust us to save your people, or watch them die in the void." Behind her, she could sense Crothan's approval. The war chief had taught her well: present the choice as a binary option, make the alternatives clear, and never apologize for offering strength in place of weakness. Morrison stared at her for a long moment. "Captain Vasquez, you look different. Enhanced? What happened to you out here?" "I evolved, Captain Morrison. As will your people, if they choose to survive." The transmission cut off from the New Horizons end. Elena waited, knowing that Morrison was conferring with his officers, discussing options they didn't have, considering alternatives that didn't exist. She had been in his position not so long ago, and she knew exactly how the conversation was going. 15 minutes later, Morrison's face reappeared on the screen. His expression had aged a decade in that brief time. "Captain Vasquez, my officers and I have discussed your offer. We need to know what exactly you mean by evolving." Elena gestured, and one of her former crew members stepped into the transmission's field of view. It was Dr. Sarah Mitchell, but a Mitchell transformed beyond easy recognition. Her frame had been enhanced with Kethvar biotechnology, her posture spoke of deadly grace, and her eyes held the cold intelligence of a predator. "Dr. Mitchell was my chief medical officer," Elena explained. "Now she is something far more capable. Your people will undergo similar enhancements. They will become stronger, faster, more resilient. They will be able to survive in environments that would kill ordinary humans. They will become warriors worthy of the challenges this galaxy presents." Morrison stared at Mitchell in horror. "My God! What have you done to her?" Mitchell spoke for herself, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. "I have become what I needed to become, Captain Morrison. The human form is beautiful, but it is also fragile. The Kethvar have shown us how to be both beautiful and strong." "The Kethvar?" Morrison's voice was barely a whisper. Elena nodded. "Our allies and teachers. The ones who will help your people adapt to the realities of a galaxy at war." "War? What war?" "The galaxy is at peace. The colonial authority maintains. The colonial authority maintains an illusion, Elena interrupted. Captain Morrison, in the past 30 minutes, 3 star systems have been consumed by entities your government doesn't want you to know exist. The peace you know is purchased with the blood of those willing to fight the battles you cannot imagine. She activated a tactical display showing Morrison the same galactic map Crothan had shown her, the real galaxy, where vast regions were marked as war zones or extinction events. Morrison stared at the display in shock. This can't be real. It is real, Captain. And your people will either become strong enough to face it, or they will become casualties of it. There is no third option. The silence stretched for nearly a minute before Morrison spoke again. If we agree to this transformation, will our people retain their humanity? Elena considered the question. Were she and her crew still human? They looked human, mostly. They spoke human languages and retained human memories. But they thought differently now, moved differently, prioritized differently. They had become something new, a hybrid species designed for war in a galaxy that demanded warriors. They will become the best possible version of what humanity can be, she said finally. Captain Morrison, you have 30 minutes to make your decision. After that, we move on to our next mission, and your people die as they are, weak but pure.